Now, the Biden administration has given Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman immunity from a lawsuit over the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. The announcement has drawn condemnation from the journalist's family and friends. In October 2018, Mr Khashoggi, who'd been critical of the Saudi regime, was killed and dismembered by Saudi agents at the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul. Well, for more on this, I'm joined now by our security correspondent, Frank Gardner. Frank, just explain this immunity dispensation and the context in which it sits.
Sure. So this was following an instruction from the US State Department to the US Justice Department and in turn handed down to the Federal Court of New York, because there was a lawsuit that has been brought by the fiancé of murdered journalist Jamal Khashoggi to hold Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, personally responsible for his murder. And remember that in February last year, the US intelligence community had a report that was declassified by the Biden administration, which basically said that he was aware of and in some way complicit in the murder and dismemberment of Jamal Khashoggi. So what's behind this? Well, technically, the reason for this is that in September, MBS, as he's known as, the Saudi Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, these are his initials, was made Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia, which means that as a head of state, he is immune from prosecution. So that would be the sovereign, the head of state, and the foreign minister are always immune from legal prosecution. To be honest, this is kind of academic because, as you can imagine, in Saudi Arabia, in a kind of hereditary monarchy like Saudi Arabia's, power rests with the top members of the ruling Al Saud family. And Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has really had pretty much unfettered power since he became Crown Prince in 2017. What I see behind this is an attempt by the US to repair very poor relations with the Saudis. The Saudi-US relations were extremely warm under the previous administration in Washington of President Trump. He chose Saudi Arabia as his first destination for his first foreign visit as president, but they've been very cool under President Biden. So it's a belated attempt, I think, to repair that fractured relationship.
And yes, I mean, President Biden made his views known after the death of Mr Khashoggi. And obviously, we've also seen in the past Hillary Clinton call out nations like Saudi in terms of the worry about the terrorist funding from individuals within that state. And yet Ukraine has forced a change in US policy, hasn't it?
Well, yes. I mean, the Americans and indeed their Western partners, I think, are a bit disappointed with the lack of support from the Saudis and others when it comes to Ukraine. So if you remember quite recently, the Americans put a lot of pressure on the Saudis to pump more oil to bring down fuel prices at the pump, particularly ahead of the midterms in the US. And the Saudis ended up doing exactly the opposite. They cut production as a part of a OPEC plus deal, but in collaboration with Moscow, with the Russians. So the froideur, the coolness of Saudi-US relations, I think, is driving the Saudis closer to other countries, other big states like Russia and China, because the Saudi view is that the US is an unreliable partner, even though it still remains their big strategic ally, their main supplier of weapons, but they see the change of administration as showing them as being a kind of shifting sands partner, as it were. And the Saudis have decided they've got to look after themselves by they're looking to Moscow and to Beijing.
Frank Gardner, our security correspondent, thank you very much indeed.